We've got a grounded compressor, shorted to ground. It'll blow the fuse immediately. Let's go ahead and replace this. First thing I'm gonna do is acid test. This is an instant acid test. It's not the best, but it does work. Acid test is negative. It would be pink if it came back positive right now. So let's go ahead and recover all the refrigerant. Even though it came back negative, I'm gonna put it in a dirty or labeled dirty refrigerant tank, meaning the refrigerant will not be reused. And here's some of the tools that I'll be using today in today's repair. While the system's recovering, I'm gonna go ahead and sand all of the copper piping that I'm gonna make cuts at. Next, I'm gonna remove the crankcase heater and the compressor bolts, securing it to the bottom of the shell. Still got a few more minutes of recovery left, so let's go ahead and get the new compressor ready to go. There's a lot of controversy on the internet on whether you should unsweat or cut out compressors. It's really not controversy. Here's the install instructions right here. Came with this compressor, so let's go ahead and read them real quick. Cut the suction and discharge tubes close to the compressor using a tubing cutter. Do not use a hacksaw and do not attempt to unbraze the suction and discharge tubes. I had already verified that the power was off, but let me go ahead and show you. L1 to ground, 0. L2 to ground, 0. L1 to L2, 0. We're near 0 now. 0 PSI on the gauges of refrigerant left in the system, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the recovery machine and close the tank. There's probably about a couple of farts worth of refrigerant left in the lines. Now I'm gonna remove both valve cores from the service valves, and then I'm gonna hook up my nitrogen, and I'm going to set the nitrogen regulator to flow or braze and flow nitrogen through the lines while I'm cutting them out. Let's do it. Next, I'm gonna lift the old compressor out. Then I'm going to deburr and ream the inside of the copper that I just cut, because it kind of smushes it down and we don't want any turbulence, but then again we don't want any shavings in the copper itself, so we got to be careful not to get any shavings inside of the lines. I'm also in a position to blast some nitrogen through there to get any shavings I couldn't tap out. Now I'm going to put the bolts into the compressor, but I'm just going to do them barely hand tight. And what I'm also going to do is prop the back of the compressor out, because the suction line and discharge line are going to want to pull out once I start brazing. So I can't have that happening. Still got our nitrogen set to braze, and we've got one hose hooked up on the liquid line. The suction line port is wide open with the valve core removed. Both valve cores are removed, and that way the nitrogen has somewhere to escape when I'm brazing. We don't want to have it build up in there. That'll just push the silphos out. I will be using a 17.2 type tip with 15% silphos as my brazing rod, and I will be using a carburizing flame, which is a slight little bit of a feather over a flame within a flame. And my oxyacetylene pressures are going to be about 612, somewhere around there. I don't have much gas left, so I have to get this first try today. Next, I'm going to inspect all my joints with the mirror so I can make sure that I got the bottom side. Next, I'm going to pressurize the system with nitrogen. And I'm going to hit up all of my joints that I braze with soap bubbles to make sure that I have no leaks. I usually like to go at least 200 PSI, maybe a little bit more, but this line set is very long. Some people might want to go a little higher than 250 PSI when doing their leak tests, but in my experience, that's definitely enough for the soap bubbles to pick up. Everything does look good. Looks like we don't have any leaks, so I'm going to release all the nitrogen, or about 99% of it. I've got about 95% of that nitrogen out of the system. Now I'm going to pull vacuum. Today I'm going to be pulling from both sides. I'm going to be using a True Blue hose, 1/2 inch, and a 3/8 hose that I also use for vacuum, and pull from both sides. I'll be using a few valve core removal tools, and yeah, valve cores are still out, so let's get to sucking. gonna start with my valve cores in the off position. Then I'm gonna start the vacuum pump with the gas ballast in the open position. And once the vacuum stops making a bunch of noise or gets down to 3,000 microns, I will go ahead and open up on the gas ballast. And this will protect the oil from the initial vacuum so it won't get as contaminated and last longer, so I can get a deep, deep vacuum. Once my micron gauge reads below 1,000 microns or near 500, I'm going to go ahead and burp the valve core removal tools to let any air out that might be trapped. While that's vacuuming or evacuating, I've got plenty of work to do. I'm going to replace the capacitor, the run capacitor, the contactor, the compressor plug, and I'm going to clean up. So lots of work to be done. Make sure you read on your new compressor on what size run capacitor it takes, and don't blindly follow the same one as the old compressor. Before I break vacuum and put the fan cover on, I wanted to go ahead and rinse this blanket of crap off the condenser coil. And then go ahead and set up the refrigerant to break vacuum. I'm happy with where our microns are for this compressor change out. Now what I'm going to go do is a decay test where I isolate the system from the vacuum pump and I check for any significant rise over the course of 10 minutes. Microns have risen to the low 200s. I've got my scale zeroed out. I've got all the air bled out of the line, so when I break the vacuum, all I have to do is open up on the liquid line valve core. It's been 10 minutes and we've risen a little bit over 100 microns, so I'm gonna go ahead and break vacuum. I've got about a pound of refrigerant inside the system now, so I'm going to install the valve cores. After I install the valve cores, I'm going to put in about 5-6 pounds. We've got a roughly 70 foot of line set. It is very, very hard to guess how long the line set is since it goes through several floors and through walls. So I'm going to start with 5.5 pounds. I pulled out 6, and then we'll charge by subcooling from there. Got about 5 pounds in there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fire the system up, and I'm gonna let it run for a good 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure these coils are close to being dry, but I want them 100% dry before I check pressures and temps. Initial reading is 1 subcooling, so I'm going to go ahead and just keep adding little spurts, maybe 0.2 ounces at a time, until I reach my desired 8 to 10 subcooling. All right, there's my final readings. I added almost 4 pounds additional of what the nameplate called for because of the long line set. Let me know if you have any questions, what you would have done different. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. My name's Dave, and this fix is done.